Hey guys, it's Casper with STAG, and I'm here for a quick update on Tabletop AR, where the project currently is, what we're currently working on, and what the timelines look like for the upcoming launches and releases. The next thing on the agenda, the most pressing thing to talk about, is the iOS launch. For Apple phone users, there's been a slight hold up launching the project. In fact, it was what was holding up everything, because we wanted to launch all of the digital apps simultaneously. Because iOS was being held up, we were holding up the Android launch. We decided that because the iOS was taking so long to finish the review stage, that we'd simply launch the Android version on its own, so the majority of users could get on the app sooner rather than later. The iOS version is currently still in the review phase with Apple, so it's entirely out of our hands how long it's going to take. We can keep emailing them to poke them, which we have been doing. We have provided them all the documentation that they've asked for so far. Basically the review stage was extended because they wanted further documentation from us, because it was an AR app and they couldn't open it and use it. So we had to provide more documentation and explain exactly what it is that we're trying to put on their store. So it ended up being held up. Probably won't take more than another week, but that's sort of guesswork from my part. I don't see how it could take longer than that. It's basically a 2-page app, so I don't know how much there is for them to poke and prod around in there. So that's the iOS. Hopefully only another week. You will be able to see on the screen here us displaying a video of someone using it on an iOS device, on an iPhone, just so you can see, yes, we have been able to convert it. We have been able to use it on an Apple device. It's just in the review stage at the moment. Okay, the Android launch has gone reasonably successfully. I've only had one report of one Android device failing to run the app. So obviously, if you're a backer or if you're interested in the project, make sure that you do open it up. If you're an Android user, open it up and let us know that it's working. Let us know if it's not working, especially. And then get in contact so that I can start poking and prodding what any issues that might exist. Currently, the one device that was raised, I think I have already found a solution for that today. So there are patches for these sorts of issues. There are ways that I can fix it. So make sure that you do get in contact, obviously. Let alone other parts of that. You purchasing something that you're not able to use is obviously not something that we want anyone doing. The next issues. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly run through some of the comments on the Kickstarter. The first and most pressing, I think, from everyone is that we haven't been communicating as much as we had been, or we would have wanted to. It's primarily due to the workload that we ended up putting on ourselves over the last 6 weeks. I haven't had time, basically, to excuse myself sitting down and editing one of these videos. It takes maybe 4 hours to put out an update, because I try to make the content quality reasonably good. With a late launch, it becomes difficult to excuse sitting down and spending that time doing this rather than working on the app, trying to get it through the review stages and trying to keep everything organized. Things end up getting late, and then also the updates end up getting put on the back bench, when really they probably should be focused on more. Keeping everyone in the loop becomes more important, even while it becomes more difficult to excuse the use of the time not doing as much as you can for the launch. It's a double-edged sword there. You end up in a late launch, and then you end up not communicating because it's a small team and we're trying to get as much done to get the launch out on time, or as close to being on time as possible. Related to the next parts of the launch and the next bits of work that we're going to be doing. The next and most pressing thing for me to do is, over the next month, maybe 6 weeks, is to get the gold and silver player backers models created. Now, a few people have also mentioned in the comments that they want to see more monsters in the app. So I think every single gold and silver player backer actually requested monsters to be placed in the app. So that's a good 8 or 9 new monster figures. The gold player backer actually wants a whole series of I guess, units of monsters to be placed in the app, like 3 or 4 goblins, 3 or 4 wolves, like a pack of wolves, that kind of thing. So that's going to be the next content that I'm going to be working on, and then launching into the app. So that will be with maybe sort of a 0.2 version of the app that's going to come out. We'll have that additional content put in there. Obviously, as I make it, I'll create content about making it about fulfilling people's requests, the gold and silver player backers, their requests. What I'll do is I'll say what the request was, and then I'll create content about me fulfilling it, so that people kind of get that narrative and they can follow that process as I go through it. The next most pressing comment, I suppose, was a statement about the user interface, the UI. The stylization that is currently in the app is extremely basic, and that was done intentionally. Everything in the app currently is a very basic, very straightforward build. This is placeholder. Some of it is placeholder. I can replace the formatting and the style of the user interface in the app quite straightforwardly at the moment. It's very straightforward. Everything's very simple. Before it gets complicated, everything's very simple, very straightforward. In the build itself, it's very easy to navigate and understand where everything is. By building the app the way that I have, it's very easy to expand the functionality that's in there, because it's very easy to find your way around. It's very simple arrays, very easy to find your way around. For this reason, you're then able to make certain aspects more complicated as the use cases come in, as people say, oh, I wasn't able to do this thing that I would have expected to be able to see, and everyone clamours, yes, we should be able to do this. Once we have mass usage, we have more people using it, we have more people saying what they would expect to have been able to do with it, we start seeing what the product, I guess that would be what would be called. It would be called the product issues are with it, and what the use cases are. Maybe to us, certain uses seem appropriate and they seem correct, but to the majority of people, that's not the way they would want the app to operate. No one is going to end up with exactly what they want. What would be better is for everyone to have something that works in the vast majority of use cases in the most streamlined and straightforward way. Which brings me directly on to one of the Kickstarter backers' comments. I'm sure if you're watching it, then you'll know who you are, but I don't want to put you on the spot on a public statement at all. So, whose comment was related to the system of arrays that we have used for the product. I think the view was that each of the models should be on their own unique marker. Now, the reason that I think this is a bad idea is currently the markers almost never get each other confused. The technology is going to scan the marker. If it's scanned 50% of the marker and it thinks that it looks like a different marker, then it will scan as each other, which is very poor for the usability. You don't want it doing that. So currently every single marker is very different from each other, making it near impossible for them to ever get confused with each other, which is good, especially on low-tier devices. The next thing is we didn't want anyone to think that what we're going to be doing is a Magic the Gathering. We'll sell you a pack of bits of cardboard for £10 each time that we release a new set of models. The idea was that we would build generic arrays for the markers. You print the markers, or you buy one set of cardboard markers, and that's all you ever have to buy from us. We're not going to do Pokemon collectible cards. You don't need to keep buying sets from us. You've purchased it. The things that we launch now, you can get hold of. Doesn't seem fair on the people who want to use the product to make them keep having to buy little pieces of cardboard from us every time we launch new content. That's not how we wanted to operate. Related to the arrays and why they were selected, currently you can open up the app and you can look through a series of, I think it's about 12 sets of models arranged more or less into categories, and you're able to name the categories. So you're able to more or less navigate more than 50 models. Now, I would say that if we were to quadruple that, you would be able to category, you'd be able to more or less remember the categories for 30, 40, 50 sets. So and remember what is more or less in those categories. It's by putting them into sets of 5, and that's how you would navigate most of the models in the app. It allows you to more or less remember where more or less everything is. Whereas if it was, say, because at the moment the number of models is quite small, you're thinking, oh, just let me navigate all 50 models. Well, that could be quadrupled in 2 months. It could be 10 times as much as that in a year. How are you going to navigate and select one of 500 models for each of those targets? That seemed impossible, maybe. Like that's absolutely not going to work. At least this may work with some limitation, but at least this will work. Was what I thought about that. But one of the suggestions did make quite a lot of sense to me, which was that the monsters specifically shouldn't be put into sets. And this clicked with me quite a bit, is if as the Dungeon Master or the Game Master you decide that you want X, Y, Z encounter to happen, you're going to want the ability to select the exact creatures for the encounter beforehand. And this definitely rang true with me. Once at least one of the sets of 5 markers, at least one of them, you are going to want to be able to open that up and select everything in that set. So I think what I might do is I might make one of the color markers sort of a special array, specifically so that you can arrange all 5 of the markers, maybe just having the different monsters in there, so that you can select the exact encounter that you want. I think this makes sense, and I think it also will keep things reasonably streamlined for a user. I think making it that way, you get the speed and simplicity of having like the village on a color set, but you also get the specificity of having the ability to select the exact monsters that you want on one of the markers. I think that makes sense. So you could have 2 dragons and a gelatinous cube and whatever. When we have more things, obviously it'll make a bit more sense. But and at the minute it's kind of just boss fight stuff. But once things are there's a bit more content in there, then it will make I think a bit more sense. But I do hear what you're saying with that. I do like the feedback, because I like getting as much information about how the product is being received by people as possible. The next one was about as a game master, you having to have your players program the app as you go. Yes, this was something that we thought about a while ago. There is in the pipeline the intention for the game master to be able to generate a code once they've made their selections, and then for players to simply input the code and it to make their selections for them. So you select the dragons on everything, or the monster sets on all of the colored arrays, and then you will get a 4-digit or 8-digit code that then your players will simply type into a field, into a field, and they'll click like enter, and it will select all of the options that the game master wants for the game. So you will be able to get around the complexity of needing the with it currently as straightforward as it is. It's very, very simple currently. I don't see it being a problem. It's more keeping in mind that things are going to continuously expand, the functionality future-proofed as the app keeps getting larger and larger in the future. The next point was AVR, so the mixed reality experience for the headsets that are coming out. There is some, people are currently having some problems with the current version of Vuforia, specifically getting the AVR mixed reality view to switch off and switch back to the AR version of the app. Currently, the solution I have in mind is to have a second version of the app with the AVR functionality built into that. That will be integrated into just the single AR app once Vuforia once I've been able to figure out what the documentation for Vuforia regarding switching the camera modes is, I haven't been able to even find them solving the problem yet, but I'm currently looking. So basically, it's going to be launched potentially as a second app before anyone receives their headsets, certainly, but potentially in a second app due to the problems with the functionality with the AVR. Once it's fixed, they'll be brought into a single entity. And another suggestion was an instruction manual, which I'll be working on myself today, or I'll be sending that off as a brief over to the US to get one of the guys over there to do it. I think maybe one of the guys over there should do it, simply because maybe over familiarity with a system might make you the wrong person to do a tutorial. Maybe someone with slightly less, but still quite a lot, but slightly less familiarity. Simply because if you know something inside out and backwards and forwards, you may overlook things more easily than other people. So maybe I'll send it over to the US, and you'll be able to hear a bit more of someone else's voice for once. But yeah, we'll be working on a tutorial quite soon. I think that's everything. Oh no, one more thing. The guys over in the US have ordered in, I think, about half, maybe a bit more than half of all of the stuff that's being sent out in the packs. So that it's currently in the process of being processed. So yeah, all of that stuff is going to be fulfilled sooner rather than later. Exact timelines, I can't give you exact timelines until they receive everything. Well, we'll know the amount of time it takes for us to do things. I need to get specific timelines from the guys over in the US, basically. I'm not 100%. I do know what has arrived, which is about half the stuff. A bit more is we're still waiting to come through, basically. I think that is literally everything. And new models that I've been working on. Okay, so I have had spare time over the last 6 weeks to work on stuff. So some of this is also from previous projects that I've just brought over. So there is a range of new models that are currently being worked on. Obviously, this is a lot slower than you would normally expect from me. In the not too distant future, I'm going to start explaining how the modeling works, how skinning works, how repainting this stuff works, so that people can pop it open in Blender 3D, which is a 3D program that I use, and they can start working on their own models that maybe they want to add to the app. I'm going to start working on some beginner to intermediate level modeling tutorials, specifically focused on the models that we've launched in this app for the future. So keep an eye out for that. I'm still in conversations with the guys about how aggressively we can go about that project. Personally, I'm all for it, but we'll see. Yes, take care. Thank you for your patience. We will be a lot more communicative in the future. I do realise that this is one of the primary complaints that we currently have, is that we haven't been communicative enough. I'm hoping that by focusing on the project, we have been able to allay some of the complaints of tomorrow, if that makes sense. We've managed to fix a lot of as many of the problems as we could before launch, and one day I'll go through all the problems we've had with the launch. It will be something that I'm able to laugh about, but at the moment we're still currently late, so probably shouldn't. But some of it is pretty ridiculous. Anyway, take care, have a wonderful day.